Crucify and Thank You were two songs that made me cry. And at the time, as a teenager, I had a whole thing about how I didn't do that, you know. And so I felt like that's what really got me in touch with feelings that I couldn't access. Like I never cried or anything in any other part of my life, but if I listened to her and those specific songs, I would. And so they just became really important. I mean, it's the same thing today. If I listen to it, I'm like, meh.
Welcome to the Holistic Life Navigation Podcast, where we explore life through the lens of somatics. I'm Luis Mujica, a somatic educator who teaches people how to find safety in themselves. Your turn to learn begins now. Hey everybody, so I am joined by a group of really cool people. I haven't ever hung out with them before besides Melissa and Marika, but I can't wait to learn about them. Back in the day, I used to spend a lot of time on message boards in my high school years. And I just felt such belonging and connection because you could be so far away and apart and have different experiences in life and different worlds and bodies that you move from. Yet there'd be this incredible thread around the musician or the words or the lineage, of the artist. And I missed that. And I thought, I'm always singing Tori Amos songs. I'm always covering them. I have such a depth in my soul from growing up with her music. It took me to such deep places. I thought there has to be other people that want to talk about this. And so I put out a thing on my stories and a bunch of people responded. Not everyone showed up, but a lot of you did. And it's fun to have you here. So I thought we would kind of introduce ourselves to the audience one by one, where you live, what your name is, if anything you do or are interested in this lifetime. And then we can kind of go into sharing some stories about how Tori Amos helped us find safety in ourselves as we were teenagers and even present day for anyone that still works with her music. So I'm just going to call based on what I see here. Mal, tell us about you.
Hi everyone, my name is Malvina. I come from Poland, but I live in Cornwall, the UK. I'm a mother of two, aged 6 and 7. I recently started working in mental health, and I'm also a mindfulness teacher, and I work as a birth doula as well. Yeah, that's me. Thank you.
You just accidentally live in Tori Amos's hometown, which I love. Amos, tell us about you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi. So I'm Tori. I'm a Tori Amos drag tribute act. In the evenings and at the weekends during the day, I'm Chris and I do digital marketing. That's pretty much me. And it's obvious to say at this point, I'm a massive Tori Amos fan. And have been, again, pretty much since the teenage years when I discovered her, when I stopped being a Korn Papa Roach listening enthusiast to listening to Tori's piano angst instead.
Oh, I love the transition from Korn to Tori Amos. I twin you on that experience. I have so many more questions for you. I'm going to come back to you. Samson, do you want to unmute and tell us about you?
Yeah, hey, my name is Sam. I am from Denver, Colorado. And I guess I discovered Tori through my sister, my older sister, and she was listening to Little Earthquakes. And I remember like hearing the music playing, and like at the time I was in, I think around 7th grade, and I was like, what in the world is she listening to? Like I couldn't really get into it, and she would like blast it and stuff, and I'm like, I don't like, normally I like your music, but this one I don't. And all of a sudden it just started to creep in, and I like stole one of her mixtapes and I like listened to it on my Walkman and everything. And then, I mean, it's, been like that ever since. I'm just like totally enamored. But yeah, I don't know.
That's perfect for now. Let's start. That's perfect. I love it. Love it. And I want to talk more about that transition of I can't stand this to it's like in me, because I had this very similar experience. Chris White, go ahead.
Hi, I am Chris. Great to be here. I'm in Jacksonville, Florida right now. And part of me is in the holistic, trauma-informed, somatic, nervous system regulation world. Part of me is in marketing world. Yeah, and Tori, 18, 19, I didn't like her at first. I heard her, that screeching, angry woman, but then it clicked and connected, and then in just pure obsession. And I was living on my own for the first time in the world, and then drinking, drugs, partying, trauma, dysfunction, codependency, life, breaking free from religion and the society and just all the things. And here's Tori, and it just the music, and it just really matched on so many levels. And I had played piano too, on and off, and had stopped music. But then here comes Tori, and then just brought all of that just alive for me.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Can't wait to riff on this more with you. Marika, tell us about you. I mean, everyone knows you on the podcast, but tell us why you're here with us.
I'm an assistant to Louise, but also I listen to music. I think the same as everyone else. I was in 9th grade going into 10th grade when I heard her, and I wasn't coming off of Papa Roach, but more like super pop, right? So going from like Paula Abdul in 8th grade, to Tori Amos in like 9th, 10th. And Tori, I loved her because listening to her made me feel like a serious person. You know what I mean? Like I felt like older and more mature. But then, when I really sat down, and because I played the piano at the time, like when I really listened to her, like I wanted to be able to play the piano like her, and I wanted to, and to be able to sing with so much freedom. I just loved that, especially when, as a teenager and no freedom, she really represented something for me of like what I hoped my life would be like, after I found freedom, mostly just from parents, right? But that was she was a real voice of freedom in the future. So, and she still is.
That's so beautiful, Marika. Thank you. Hey, Melissa, tell us about you.
My name is Melissa, and I'm in Bellingham, Washington, and I'm a mother of a 2.5-year-old. And I'm an artist. I love to paint, and I love to listen to music and create. And I think I was like 14 or 15 when I first got Voice for Pele. And I remember just sitting in my room with my Discman, and like, it was the first album that was such a journey for me that I like every single song, and I had to listen to it all the way through. Where a lot of other artists, it was like I had a couple songs here and there. And yeah, I just have this very strong body memory of being in my room. And like Marika said, that freedom that the voice, like her voice comes through, I think I was just yearning to have that kind of expression. So yeah.
I love that. I love how we all have such similar experiences of our age and what we were noticing and what we were feeling. My gateway drug to Tori was Boys for Pele. And it was, I remember I had been an Alanis Morissette fan. Like I was one of those kids, and I was like obsessed with everything she made. But then it was kind of getting a little too poppy for me after her second album, but I still loved her so much. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to enjoy this. And I kept seeing Tori because of the 6.5-week tour that she did with Alanis. And I was always like, oh, Alanis is with that woman. I had this idea of like that, like annoying woman. I just had this horrible concept of her. I thought she was like too good for me. That was my weird idea. I don't know why, but it was this whole story I had attached. And then my friend gave me a burnt CD of Boys for Pele. And I remember putting it into my stereo in my bedroom, and just like that note on Beauty Queen, just like that note that she just let suspend. I was like, I've never heard an artist that could play such a percussive instrument in such a watery way. It was like pure magic. And the way just her chant in the beginning, and the way the chords and the individual notes like whirled around her and horses and like left timing and came back to, it was like so out of reality, out of the physical. It was like an immediate, just connected me to some part of myself I didn't know how to access otherwise. And it completely changed my life, and still does. Like, I'll still play these songs that have been in my body for decades with her, and I get a new part of myself every time. It's like a drug, like a plant medicine. It's really amazing. So I'm kind of curious, those of you who didn't share, maybe we can just kind of go around again. Like, what was the first song? What was the first moment? Whoever wants to just unmute and go.
I'll go. My first song, I think, was probably either Winter or Precious Things. I think really Precious Things like hit me the hardest of the two. But those are the two that kind of like roped me in. And I just remember like with Precious Things, like it's such a painful song to listen to. And like, you know, I mean, she's emoting that and everything. And I just remember like that rage and that like her taking it back, you know, and just kind of like reclaiming herself within that whole bridge was like revolutionary for me. I was like, oh my God, like, wow. And yeah, that was just, I mean, that's my favorite song of hers because of it, just because like every time I hear it, it doesn't get any older. Like it just hits me the same every single time.
What shifted for you? Like, what didn't you like about her first? Like, how did it feel in your body, or what was the experience?
I think I had just not heard somebody sing that way before. Like, I mean, especially in that song, like she's like screeching almost. And you know, it's not poppy in that sense. And not that I was listening to pop necessarily. Like, I was very influenced by what my sister was listening to. And, you know, she was listening to like Pink Floyd and stuff before that. And so like I had other experiences with different kinds of music that were not mainstream, but this was like the most anti-mainstream that I had heard to that point in my life. And yeah, I think that was really just like my brain that was trained to listen to all these like, you know, like easy to digest and listen to songs. And then all of a sudden it was like, you know, like the record scratch. And I was like, wait a minute, what is this? And I think that was my hesitance to it at first. And I didn't want to like it either, because I was like, this is weird. And then it started getting in my head because she would play it over and over. And then that's when I was like, I guess I kind of like her. And then once I dove in, I was like, oh yeah, okay. I like her.
So your sister accidentally brainwashed you into liking Tori Amos just on repeat, and your soul
totally.
opened up to it.
That was the end game. She was like, all right, I'm gonna keep playing this for you
until I break you into loving this woman.
Didn't take that long, but yeah.
What about you, Amos? What was the song that pulled you in? What was the moment for you?
So I actually came to Tori pretty late. It was To Venus and Back was the album. So what was that, 99, I guess? And like I say, I was in my Corn, you know, I was in that Limp Bizkit, Skunk and Nancy, all of that kind of stuff. Had a little goth phase before that, as we probably all did at some point. It was, but it was the song Concertina was the one. So she was playing on a late night TV show in the UK called Videotech. And she did Concertina and A Thousand Oceans on the piano. And it was just like, not like anything I was listening to at the time. But it was just so beautiful. And the piano playing was so intricate and the lyrics were so poetic, and but it had the same sort of angst of everything else that I was listening to. And I was like, angst can be musical too. That's nice. Okay. And then I think literally the next day I got To Venus and Back, which is a great, you said gateway drugger. Yeah, that's a perfect term for it, because like To Venus and Back, it's got obviously the album, but then the live CD as well. And then I was like, oh, she can write a song. She can really write a song. And then obviously I went back and got Little Earthquakes and Under the Pink and Pale and everything, and worked my way through the catalogue, which at that time wasn't that long. It was like those albums a while ago, and then I was right back at the new album. So yeah, that was my entry point to her.
I love that. I just love that the lyric. I'm not policing what you think and dream. It's like
Yes,
there's really
I
just
love that.
like
Yeah.
decadent, lines that
It,
just land in you, right?
yeah, there's so many lines in that song as well. It's like a soul quake happened here in a glass world, like things like that. I was like, what
That's
talking
right.
about?
That's
Yeah,
right.
I love it.
I love what you were saying about angst too, because I think one of the things that I find so special about her that I've only found with very few artists, any kind of artist, not even musician, is this ability to create such a safe space to feel like you can receive the angst and you can go
Yeah.
into it. Like it's not scary. It's
Yeah.
like delicate in this really strange
Yeah.
way, but powerful. And I find that to be a real, almost like a shamanic skill set with these
Yeah.
songs,
Yeah.
How about you, Malvina? What was the song that pulled you in?
I actually can't remember. I don't even. I actually have no idea when it started. I just know that I've been listening to her for years. And now I'm going through a very interesting process of my daughter discovering her through me. So my daughter is 6 and she absolutely loves her. She absolutely loves her. And I think this is just such a powerful thing to pass on. But I think to me, it's what you've just said now as well, the like Tori's ability to kind of contain both that sort of really angry sort of state as well as like really dreamy fairy tale like, and I find that to me that really resonates with how I feel very often, and that sort of safety that I can be both. And because having like a song like Precious Things, which is also my probably favorite, and then at the same time Sleeps with Butterflies or sort of fairy tale, it's just like, how can you sort of combine such powerful meanings through such different songs through the same artist? It's just such a magic to me, that you can be so delicate in that very deep emotional state as well. So I think, to me, it's that really beautiful sort of flowy state between one or the other. But I literally cannot remember what was the first thing that got me, the first song that got me into it. But it's been a while now with Tori.
I really appreciate what you're saying about this like fluidity of states, because it's not something I thought of before, but it's exactly what it was for me. And I think Pele is like that snapshot for me in particular, because like I had been, anyone knows my story, I had been sexually assaulted several times when I was young, and I didn't even know it. I had blacked it out. And so when I was listening to her music, I still didn't fully make the discovery, but I knew there was something familiar that she was addressing that I could understand. And I just remember lines like in Tallulah, I had my rape hat on, but I couldn't accessorize. Like this humility in the same line as something like really deep and painful. Like she was able to play with her trauma in front of us. And no one has ever done that since in the same way, in my opinion. And I think that's what's so profound about like what she delivers. Like she plays with it in front of you. She doesn't make you feel bad about it. You don't feel responsible for it. You just kind of like with her in it. It's so special. I love that. What about you, Chris? Like what was the piece that pulled you in, if you can remember?
Yeah, I was learning Boys for Pele and Little Earthquakes at the same time, but it was Precious Things, I think. And I was learning the music and listening to it over and over again. Then I went to my first concert around 1997 in Orlando, and the first song is Precious Things, and that she comes out just like the lights, the thing, and I was just like, that's I think where I just like, she had me. She already just was starting to, but that moment, that and then that line, so you can make me come, that doesn't make you G's us. Just I was deconstructing religion too. Someone to say those words, like what, come and Jesus in the same sentence, like, and I was just like, yeah. So that just hit so deep on so many levels. Yeah. And then right after that, I got the Boys for Pele piano music book, and I hadn't played in a couple of years. Then just really slowly I started learning Caudalite sneeze really slowly, and then it just like brought that back. And I had learned classically piano, like scales and notes, but seeing her on that piano and then just the making love and the gyrations and the music. And then I would notice when I would play, it wasn't just like I started leaning in. I started getting in my body. I started just like feeling it. So she brought just that alive in me as well. So that was kind of happening during that period.
Oh, I love that you brought in that line. It's like, this is how spoiled I am with her. Like, I forgot that that line even exists, you know? It's like, but that line was, every time I would hear it, I would feel like liberated, right?
Right. Like what?
Like, what I'm allowed to, because I grew up in an Irish Catholic family. And so what's funny is I brought my Pele songbook to my piano teacher at the time, who was a Jehovah's Witness. And I had to white out the lyrics of Blood Roses because I wanted him to like teach me how to play it, and I had to white out all these, sexual references so he would keep working with me. I think I was 16. But so I remember that feeling of like navigating sexuality and religion, and she just like put it in that line. I was like, whoa, thank you. Needed that one. What about you, Marika? What was the moment of the song?
It actually, Crucify was the first one that I ever heard, but it was on like the single, like the CD, physical media. And the B-side was her cover of Led Zeppelin's Thank You.
Hmm.
And that's one of my favorites. I think because, and it's kind of weird now because looking back on it, but Crucify and Thank You were two songs that made me cry. And at the time, as a teenager, I had a whole thing about how I didn't do that, And so I felt like that's what really got me in touch with feelings that I couldn't access. Like I never cried or anything in any other part of my life, but if I listened to her and those specific songs, I would.
Mm.
And so they just became really important. I mean, it's the same thing today. If I listen to it, I'd be like, "Meh," but it's almost like a great tool now, knowing that that's kind of that there's always going to be some kind of release. I really love, I try not to play it at parties because that could go south. But yeah, it was really Crucify, which took me to Thank You. And then because when I was I think it was end of 9th grade is when Little Earthquakes came out. So which in my mind was the beginning.
Yeah, of course. I love what you're saying about the crying, because to this day, when I go to her concert, like the moment she walks on the stage, I just notice tears just start. And it's not in this adoration way. It's in this way of like, all those parts of me are waking up and they're alive again. And this person is pulling them out just by their existence. And she just presses her hand on just one chord and just like, it just like comes right through. But it's so nice. It's so gooey that someone is that like intimately inwoven in my body that it awakens that quickly. It's amazing. I
I
love
agree.
that.
I also wanted to say she is, I think I've seen her the most in my life. And I remember, I think it was my mom or somebody asking me, like, why do you keep seeing the same person, over and over again? Like, and there's obvious, it's a new album, or I just really like, but I really do think it was to just feel that connection, with someone who could bring up those types of feelings and sensation in my body. Who was kind of an adult,
Yeah.
I didn't hate.
Yeah,
So,
totally.
it was just it was a nice relationship, I think.
I know, Melissa, you said Pele. Do you have was there a particular moment or song that really just took you to a part of yourself?
Well, I had the same experience with you with Beauty Queen. I think the spaciousness of the notes and her voice. But the song that's really coming through my body right now is Yes, Anastasia from Under the Pink. And it's like over 9 minutes long. And there was a period of time when whenever I was home alone, I would get my CD and put it out in the living room on the big speakers. And I would do this whole dance to that song, like over and over and over. And I used to do ballet. And so there's parts of that song that are like so dramatic. And then like Malvina said, there's the parts that are really sweet. And I just like taking my body through the song over and over and being in this full expression when I was home and no one was going to see me. And I could just be in my full expression like she was in her voice. So that song was really special. And I love how long it is. And yeah, I love those kind of long songs.
Oh, you took me right back. The first time I ever saw her in concert was 2006. Was that the original Sensuality tour? I think it was 2006. It was 2005 or six. And the second song was Yes Anastasia, and it was solo, and I was just like blown the fuck away. I couldn't believe it. It was incredible. I'm curious, one thing I love to explore with all my guests, but especially as we're talking about music, is I'm curious to share whatever depth feels, comfortable for everybody. What places in you, or events that were stuck in you, or traumas that were unresolved, like what places did her work help you access? Because I think the real, for me, the magic of song is it literally pulls you. The vibration touches a part of you. It's a physical touch, right? And I think based on the artist, whether they know it or not, they're kind of not manipulating in a malicious way, but like there's literally a manipulation of your energy. If there's an aggression, it's touching that part of you. If there's like a sexiness, it's touching that part of you. And so I'm curious what part of you, and there may be many, but which one do you want to talk about that she really helped you work through or showed you was in there to begin with? And anyone can feel free to just unmute when they find it, because it might take some time to sit with that.
I think one thing I was going to say is I'm not sure if this is necessarily a direct answer to that, but one of the things that I kind of found fascinating with Tori is that the songs that sort of initially drew me in weren't necessarily about trauma, and weren't necessarily about, at least on the surface, weren't necessarily obviously about trauma or about surviving abuse. But that's very much where I was at the time, in a background for abusive dad, alcoholic father, and a difficult home life. And it's funny that I gravitated towards her music, even though at first, like, songs are, Concertina's not necessarily obviously about that. But then when I discovered her, because it was the music that drew me in. It was the sort of arpeggiated chords, and just like it was very much the music that drew me in. The lyrics kind of came after. And then it was when I went back and kind of heard Me and a Gun, and kind of, all of Little Earthquakes, to be honest. And I was like, that was when I was kind of like, this is tapping into something that actually I'm not getting from anywhere else. And the honesty of it, I think it's just the honesty of it, when she talks about her own sort of trauma and her own experiences of abuse. That's the thing that really sort of cemented it for me. And then obviously when you get that, I guess actually is like a song like Crucify, absolutely, that was another moment for me, because Concertina's the song that brought me in. Crucify is a song that solidified it, because that has both. It has the beautiful musicality of it, but those lyrics are just like nothing else out there. And I think that's for the first time I connected music and sort of music as a sort of escape from the sort of trauma that I was kind of living at the time.
Love that you brought in the piece about just the music itself pulling you in, right? Because I've been focusing so much on like the story, the lyric, the energy, which the music's part of the energy. But just the writing is so good, like without any lyrics or anything, it's so catchy and like decadent and juicy. And especially when I think of Concertina on the piano, it's such an incredible arrangement. Yeah. So I love that the music was kind of like what softened you to then deeper lyrics, right? And
I think it's the chords she uses on this sort of arpeggio, like the scale there's something very primal about the, I'm not necessarily the best musicologist, but there's something just very primal about the kind of chords and the way she arranges music and stuff that's just obviously hit me on a very deep level.
Well, have any of you seen that really old video during the Little Earthquakes era where she's piano shopping?
Yes,
anyone ever see it?
I love that video.
Everything you're saying is in that video, because she's playing at one point. She's like having an interview and she's just like playing.
Yeah.
They're like, "Why'd you leave the conservatory or something?" And she's like, well, they were doing this, but they weren't doing
Yeah.
this, and she just
Yeah.
turns into this animal, and it's so incredible. But I'll send it to all of you so you can watch it. It's pretty cool. Yeah, and it is super primal, and primal
Yeah.
and piano shouldn't go along
Yeah,
together,
yeah.
because piano is like the civilized instrument. And I love
Exactly.
that she like brought the body and the earth and this kind of
Yeah.
paganism to it. It's so cool.
Yeah.
Who else wants to say like word? Yeah, go ahead, Sam.
I wanted to piggyback off of what Amos said about the music. I just like the lyrics for me for a while didn't mean really anything. I mean, obviously with Precious Things, that was very clear cut and I could understand it and I knew what she was talking about. But then, you know, you get like tuna rubber, little blower in my igloo, and you're like, what does that mean? I still don't know what that means, but you know, there's like, there are certain songs that are more overt than others, obviously, but like it's that music. And when I was thinking about, you know, like just kind of like diving into all this stuff in this podcast with you, that I was thinking about like what the music meant to me and like how it moved me so much. And it's such a visceral reaction, like the chords and like you were saying, the arpeggios that she plays and like all how she weaves it together. It's so visceral for me that it like, you know, sometimes it in certain songs, it gives me chills to this day, you know? And I don't know. I love her, the way that she writes songs. I like every one of her choruses, like the refrains are always catchy to me and they always just like hit at the right time. And you know, like and they flow perfectly with the song. And even in songs that are like totally abstract, like Hotel, like, you know, that comes out of nowhere and you're like, whoa, like I was not expecting that song to go in this direction, but it's one of my favorite songs, you know? And like the way that it just, I don't know, she is incredible the way that she writes.
I'm glad you just said that piece about like, I didn't expect that, because that's what really rearranged my brain with music was Professional Widow. I'm like, it's like on this certain groove and it suddenly goes into a whole other world, and the piano comes in, it's like a different genre, and there was so much genre bending and blending in that album. I was always so amazed at that. The only artist I've found that does anything like that is kind of Joanna Newsom. I don't know any of you listen to Joanna Newsom, but there's this like complete transformation from one moment of a song to another, and you're like, are we in the same song? And so I always loved that about her. That really like expanded my ability to compose in that more free way. Yeah. Were you gonna say something, Chris? It looked like you were reaching.
I'm just yesing to everything. This conversation is just so alive for me. So I'm like, yes, yes, yes. I think maybe that's why I was doing that. Yeah. But to piggyback on that, and just I was so hungry for meaning. So the words, some didn't make sense, but sometimes I was trying to like, what does that mean? Like trying hard, or just let it be. But then there were lines that were just so, you know, sit in the chair and be good now, be all that they told you. I spent my life fitting in that and stuff like that, you know. Or another thing that hit is songs like with all the turmoil, why can't my bullaloon stay up in a perfectly winded sky? So I'm going through all this mess and I'm like, why, you know, I can't, I kind of get it at a still point. Or another song that really stood out was Upside Down. God, I love to turn my little blue world upside down. I'm like, yeah, like over. But when she says, I found the secret to life, I found the secret to life. I'm okay when everything is not okay. That like my consciousness, that part of me that knows that's free, like there's a part of me that knew that. So like being in that stream of consciousness, like, yeah, what's that? And that just kind of just fed that, like, yeah, that hunger in me that wanted to wake up, to be free. And also deconstructing like some of the Catholic Christian songs when she, the Happy Phantom, if I died today, I'd be the Happy Phantom, something with Judy Garland holding hands with Buddha, taking Buddha by the hand or something like that. I'm like, Buddha and Judy Garland and like just all of that was like, yes. So something in there just also really turned me on in the music.
I mean, that was my icicle moment, like getting off. He's in my pumpkin PJs.
Totally,
like
yes.
I'm always imagining like the cross, you know, it's like all these incredible, you know, references of just like profanity and sacredness all belonging together. I like what you said about the lyrics too, because, and what you were saying about the lyrics, Sam, It's almost like this kind of lyric writing. It's like an inside joke without the joke part. I mean, sometimes it's a joke, but it's almost like code that only certain people pick up on. And like you, even if it doesn't make sense, there's this direct, like, I've thought that before, and I don't know anyone else that thinks it. There's something really special about that. I love that. Anyone feel free to just dive in and add whatever's coming up for you.
I I'd love to share. I was watching this video of the recording of Voice for Pele, and how a lot of it, she was in this church in Ireland, and she was talking about, the churches are often built on sacred sites of, indigenous people and more pagan and goddess. And so she was channeling like the electricity through her body and the energy to connect down under the church to like what was there before. And yeah, something about me reconnecting with that part of my essence or my wildness and my body. And she was talking about, we have all these representations of like the virgin and the mother, but not of like the whole woman. And she was really embodying that, like, who am I as a whole woman, and like connecting with her inner flame. And so I think listening to her, I could feel like, oh, I want to feel that part of me. And I was still a teenager, but I knew that there was something more that I wasn't seeing other places in my life, that the music was taking me to that place.
That's such an important piece, and I remember that video so well. She's like electricity, and it goes right down through this little redhead. Yeah, and so I remember, if we think about what you're saying, her music's very decolonial, isn't it? Because we're thinking, especially Scarlet's Walk. I mean, the whole album is, but she's working with a body that has, this like European imperialistic and pagan, roots, and this grandfather who's Cherokee. So like there's her actual DNA itself is very mixed and ambiguous. And I think it's what's so interesting about her with the piano is the piano is not an indigenous instrument. It's something that's much more cultivated, right, in the European world. And for her to use this thing and originally be trained on it in like a proper way, and then like unleash her wilderness onto it, there's something just magical within that. So when you were saying that piece, I felt that in me too, for sure. Yeah, that's really beautiful. Malvina, you want to add to this?
I was just thinking about how I really resonate with what Melissa said, as well about, I guess, to me, I really admire Tori for her bravery, how brave she is in telling stories, and obviously how amazingly creative she is. But the way she expresses herself as a woman, as a traumatized woman as well, a woman with history, it's just, I admire so much, because she's not afraid to be very sexual, very sensual, despite everything that she's been through, and her very traumatic, obviously, experiences. And I think I sort of strive to find that part of me being a woman in me, like that very sexual, very raw, very authentic, like very deeply connected with my inner self, and to sort of being brave and not afraid to express it out into the world. And I think this is that, like, to me, that goes down very much to being one with nature, to feel like I'm connected with nature. And I think this is why I really love her album Ocean to Ocean, because this is like, apart from the fact that I live in the same place where the songs are based from this album, but I think it's that sort of like, I don't even know how to describe it, but that going back to the basics sort of thing, and like really discovering yourself on a very raw, basic level, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I mean, it's really like, it's like an unlearning and a deconstructing just to get at this kind of like deep self, this deep, honest, integral self, without all that constructiveness that can take you away from that. I love that. You were saying something. I loved when you were saying about a woman that has trauma, especially sexual trauma, and is still being sexual, like within the same album, within the same song, like on the stage. Like to see her a cappella performing Me and a Gun, and then letting herself gyrate on the bench the next song, like and not to even say it. She's not even talking about her doing it. She's just showing you that both exist. I was talking to a facilitator last night, a colleague, and she was saying how she's discovering that trauma healing can be sexy. And she doesn't know how to say this out loud because it can be really controversial. But you're speaking this so beautifully around the very essence of healing is transforming. So my sexual body, my expression, my love for myself doesn't have to go away because you hurt me. That's on you. Like I get to still own those parts and reclaim them. And I think she does and did a really good job at that. It's really beautiful. What are you thinking, Marika?
I just liked how they both brought in what Tori as a woman, and also as a teenager growing up, having somebody who wasn't just fuck you. You know what I mean? She kind of was in a great way, but also I felt like she'd give you a hug.
Yes. Yes.
And she just sort of embodied all the different things that you'd want out of like your mother, sister, best friend, like whatever it was. I didn't really realize how much I sort of depended on that that feeling, from her. So I really love that. And also just seeing myself as a young woman and like how I was influenced by her and how glad I am I was influenced by her.
Yes, it's like I believe in peace, comma, bitch. It's like they're both there. I remember when I first heard that, I was like, whoa, that's like a great way to have boundaries and have your heart open at the same time. This is incredible. I was thinking I wanted to play, there's this like 40-second, has anyone seen her Tiny Desk performance? This recent one, it's a couple months ago. It's very new. Oh, good. So some of you have, some of you haven't. I was gonna play the first 40 seconds because she does this just like gorgeous piano intro, and it does to my heart what Sam was saying, like the chills. And I just thought we could like hear it together, and people listening could hear it because people listening, a lot of them might not even know who we're talking about. So for them to like hear, what we're talking about, I'm really nice. So I'm just gonna share that, and then we can kind of just freestyle a bit what comes up for us. We'll just stopping it there. Isn't that so gorgeous? Yeah, my heart just like rearranges itself. Like, let's all unmute and just kind of share what we notice, what we feel when we witness it.
Expansive. Very.
I love how how that song's just evolved as well. And, because actually on the record, it's very simple on the record. I think like the whole song is maybe 4 chords, maybe 5 tops. But that, yeah, it's the moments like that when she's just clearly just, it's a little bit like that. Actually reminds me of Bells for Her as well, when she's just, I remember her talking about in Bells for Her, when she recorded it, she hadn't actually written the song, she wrote it in the moment as it was recording, and she said she'd felt something brewing all day within her. They were down in New Mexico, and they were recording there, and she sort of felt some energy, she felt something kind of brewing all day, and she's like, something's coming, and to her now husband recording it. No, sorry, it wasn't. It was Eric Ross, the producer at the time. She was like, something's coming, and then she was playing at the piano, and then just sort of went into a trance-like state. And he said he sort of ran and put the sort of ADAT tape inside the recorder and hit record just as she started playing Bells for Her, and she was in this trance, and at the end of it didn't even remember what she had written and had to relearn it. And that clip that you just played then seemed very like one of those moments when she was just in a bit of a trance, and kind of, I don't think that she'd written that before. I think that was happening on the fly, and that is just pure sort of creativity happening, right there in the moment. It's kind of magical to watch.
Yeah, totally. Like she's just so masterful with the instrument that, like, I totally, while I was watching her play, like you could see that she was just, who knows how many times she's played that song, but like this was clearly bringing her to another place. She wasn't acting, like that was, the music was flowing through her, and it was just, like coming out through her fingers. And yeah, that was incredible.
It's like that music is flowing through her from that depth, that rich place, but it's hitting in that place that's in all of us. So like it's hitting in me, and we're just on this field together. It's like, so it's just like this richness, that word richness and that depth. I'm just like, I can just feel that passion, and like, yes. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really felt her embodying and her confidence, like the way she put her fingers on the keys, and how much the piano is like an extension of her body, and how well she knows it. And it brought this longing of like, I want to know an instrument like that. I just, wow. Yeah, just to see that, I feel this longing in my own soul to express in that way.
I love that. Yeah. Malvina, what are you thinking?
I find the piano such an intimate instrument. I don't play it, but I don't know what it is about. I can literally watch videos of people play the piano, and it makes me cry very often. I just find it such an intimate, beautiful instrument. And I think perhaps because there is so many different emotions that you can display through it, or express through it rather, perhaps this is the reason why. But it's just, and then again, going back to that fluidity that, you start very gentle, and then she takes you to a bit darker place for a minute, and then she kind of brings you out of it again. It's just, amazing.
It's like what Marika said earlier about her singing with freedom. It's like there's this real freedom, like Amos was saying, like she's never played that intro before. It comes in, and there's this not ego that's present enough to just have a relationship with this creature, right, of the piano. And I get interested because as a trauma therapist, one thing that's a little different about my work is animism. I do a lot of work with animism, which is the philosophy and practice of seeing everything as alive. And I mean, Tori's relationship to the piano is animistic. And you hear her refer to it in different pronouns and different genders and different names, and especially the piano shopping interview that Amos and I have watched. It's just so wonderful. She's like playing this piano, and she's like, low fat ice cream. She just has all these responses to what the personality type is and the preferences of these pianos, because they're really beings to her. And so I like when Sam was saying how many times she's played that song, thousands at this point. It's almost like she's calling in a spirit so she can play the song in a new way, as if it's the first time when she does those intros. And I find those to be so inspiring, those little intro moments. It's why, like when you were saying Amos about the second the second album of To Venus and Back, like the live, what's called Still Orbiting, I think it was called, the live one. Yeah, it was so great to hear how free she was on the piano. I love the Space Dog in that one. It's so decadent the way she uses the chords, and there's just this freedom of using the entire piano. She never just stays boxed in a chord. I never heard any other artist do that. It's so amazing.
That's the one thing that I really love about her is, if you're a fan, she really only has to play 2 notes on a piano and you know who it is. Like, I've listened to I'm in my 40s, how many thousands of people I've listened to in my lifetime, and I always know it's Tori Amos, which I think is so cool.
Yeah, I agree. Like, the moment you heard that first note strike, that I just believed, like, Tori, like it couldn't be anyone else. Anyone else want to add whatever's coming up for them? I'm going to go into a little flash round soon of questions for each of us, but just anything that's coming up for you that you want to share, that you're feeling or noticing. Okay, so I would say these are like the nerd questions. Okay, so What's your absolute favorite B-side? Like which B-side just like, oh yes, right there. And you can just unmute and share as it comes to you.
Calling or Purple People. And again, probably because I heard them both on Still Orbiting. But I just, those two songs, just Calling particularly, I think that's one. It's just also I'm just like, how good do you have to be that you can write that song and you don't put it on an album? Because all your other songs are so good.
That's a really good point.
It's amazing to me. It's like, yeah, because it's such a great song. It's stunning, beautiful. Love it.
That song is a great song to mash up with Cloud Bursting by Kate Bush too.
Oh,
it's
yes.
the same chords. I do that a lot.
Oh my God, I've never thought of that, but I'm definitely going to do that now.
You have to do that. Yeah.
I know I said thank you, and I love thank you because I was on a B-side, but I also always loved, just because of course she could do it, Home on the Range.
So good.
She could just take whatever song and make it cooler, you know?
Talk about fluidity too. I mean, she takes that song to so many places. Like, it's amazing.
Song that's showing up I haven't heard in years is it Bulule?
Balula? Is it Balula?
Yeah, I just remember that tone and just the tone of her voice, and I was like, oh, just so drawn in. And just as you're sharing that, I remember that it's really in my body right now. It's just coming through. Yeah.
I'm gonna go while y'all are thinking about it. But the Under the Pink demos like get me every time, the B-sides. And so I think it's lately it's really been Sister Janet. But the little earthquake one that's like my favorite of all time is Ode to the Banana King. It's like so amazing and strange. I just like when you were talking, Melissa, about Yes Anastasia and how you dance, like that's what the Banana King does to me. Like I become the Banana King when I listen to it.
This is such a hard question. I'm like going through all these songs.
Give me your
like, oh
top 5.
Yeah, I think I was thinking my top 3, definitely Cooling, Siren, and Bachelorette. Bachelorette I think is the B-side, right? It's not.
Yeah. Is that Choir Girl?
I think so. I think that was around the same time.
Oh, now you just made me remember the Do It Again cover. So good.
Oh yeah.
God damn. Chris, are you gonna say something?
Yeah, one more was coming through. She did a song with BT, Blue Skies, and that one. And I when I was going to raves and parties, I heard it, and it was like it leaked into some leaked a little in mainstream, and then that was just one, and I just that one also is coming to me here.
Malvina or Melissa, do either you have one?
I was gonna say Bachelorette as well as Samson, so
I'm realizing I haven't listened to a lot of B-sides, so I don't have one, but I have all this to discover. Yeah.
Oh, you have a whole world to discover. You're gonna have so much fun.
I'm so excited for you.
Thank you.
It's like
so jealous.
180 songs or
Oh
something.
my gosh.
It's like 18
I was just
albums.
I just had like my 5 albums, but I guess I just kind of stayed in those, and then at some point I kind of stopped. So this conversation is just helping me remember to come back to that part of myself.
Malvina, are you gonna say something? I see you're unmuted. Or was that just a mistake?
oh no, I just muted myself back. So
Got it. So the last thing I would ask as we kind of like start closing, I could talk for hours with all of you. You're so easy to be with. And maybe we'll have to do this another time just for fun. But what like currently right now in your life or where you are in your life, like what is the Tori soundtrack or the song that feels like it's supporting you right now? I'll say I've been, for some reason, just really on what's the, I just lost it, that amazing 6-song extra of Scarlet's Hidden Treasures. It's like a masterpiece, and I just can't stop being in it. Actually, I learned piano by Seaside, that album, the song Seaside, by playing it by ear, and it was so special to like do the same thing with my fingers as she was doing with hers.
This is a really hard question, by the way. The song for the moment here in my head is just again B-sides. I don't know. I recently I realized that on my Spotify I just had all my I just made like a queue of like all of her B-sides. Like there's no album, so I need to turn that into a playlist of just her B-sides, because but yeah, here in my head was one that's like, I think there's a really old sort of like a VHS. I had it on VHS, not showing my age or anything, but I had the VHS of her. It was a Little Earthquake sort of promotional thing, but it had some live performances, and there's a live performance of her in this tiny little place, I think performing for maybe like, it couldn't be more than like 50 people, and she plays this version of Here in My Head that's just so raw, and so it's just like it just feels like a chant. It feels like a it hits me on a very visceral level. It's very sort of meditative, and it's something about the way the piano is in that song, and that is, at the moment, I'm going back to that a lot. I don't really know why, but it's one that just keeps drawing me back, and it does. Anytime there's I'd say kind of once every sort of few years, it always comes back, and it's always one that sort of like, if I'm in a sort of going for something hard to process, it's one that always comes back, and it's like a big hug.
I agree. That's how Sister Janet is for me. It's like a hypnotic spiral that just gets you. Yeah, that's really beautiful. Who's next?
Lately, mine has been Tallulah, the Tornado Mix. When I just need like a jolt, but I also want to like sing. You know what I mean? Because it's like so easy to kind of just sing along to. Like that was like one of the songs I would sing in the grocery store while I was like shopping and stuff. So yeah, lately I've been trying to find more of the upbeat's probably the wrong up tempo. Tori song.
Do you have like a lyric out of Tallulah, just like every time you hear it, you love it? Do you have one of those, or is it just in general?
Honestly, it's when she says, "Hey," because you start in with the whole like the piano and stuff, and like it's just sort of the starting, the whole start to it, which I really love. But yeah, and I just rediscovered that remix the other day, because it's not on the it wasn't on the CD that I had, or the Spotify playlist I was listening to. I haven't listened to a CD in a long time, but yeah, so I rediscovered it, and I just loved it. So
love it. Who's next?
I don't think there's like a specific song right now, but I've been listening to Under the Pink a lot. My friend just got rid of like all of his Tori CDs, because he just was like purging like CDs in general, and I was like, I'll take them. And I have that one in my car right now, which I also haven't listened to a CD in forever. So it's such an interesting phenomenon to like go back to, of like just listening to the same CD over and over again. I feel like that album is definitely one of my favorites, and I listened to them out of like, I discovered her albums completely out of order. Like the only one that was first for me was Little Earthquakes, but I also discovered that one at the same time that Choir Girl Hotel came out, and then we like, both me and my sister kind of had to like discover like what she had before that, and so Under the Pink was like the second like it was like listening to her first album, like, lumping those two together almost for me. And then now this is her second album, and it was like, I don't know, I mean, Pretty Good Year just is one of my favorites, and Space Dog, I love that song. But yeah, that's where I'm at, I think, just kind of like reconnecting with like my more like solidified teen self of like discovering who I was, and being, queer and different, and listening to music that was different, and like identifying with that. And yeah.
You all take me back to my own experiences, and I remember being in a car driving home from the piano teacher. My best friend, who was my closet boyfriend at the time, we're both getting piano lessons with the husband and wife Jehovah's Witness duo, and we're bringing our Tori Amos playbooks in, and we're driving home, and we get on a head-on collision, and all this smoke starts barreling into the car, like the car's about to catch on fire. I jump out and I'm like, Phil, get out of the fucking car. And he's like, no. And he turns the car on to eject Under the Pink and takes it and then goes running for his life. So that's how important that album was to us. Thanks for bringing me back to that memory. What about you, Chris?
What's showing up just in this moment is not as in Cornflake Girl later on in the song. Towards the end, she just rips it with a whatever you want to call that. She's like, she just goes at it at the piano, and that never gets old for me. I actually listened to it the beat before this call. She's just going, and then it just goes, and it builds, and the dynamics, and I just feel it. It just brings just like that passion alive for me. So, and even in this call, I'm remembering that old version of me and me now, like, oh yeah, you know what? I want to bring that passion, that music, that thing, the muse that is calling, that's in me alive. So I feel like just that, yeah, I want to just something with that, just like that abandon, that getting out of the way and letting it that is already here do its thing and be taken by it, and let it like use me to take dictation and move through me, and just like all of that. So that's just what's showing up for me now. And even on this call, I'm gonna really have to sit after this call and just be with all of this, because this is really bringing up such, I mean, on so many levels, like, whoa, and so many parts of me and with us. So yeah, this is such an alive conversation. Thank you everyone for being here.
As you were speaking, I was like, the moment I get off this call, I am jumping on my piano for an hour. I'm not getting off. Yeah, I'm also just getting this like desire to do, we should all get together and do like our own little private like Tori Amos karaoke session together. It could be really fun. Do a virtual one. Malvina, what about for you? What's presently alive for you?
Well, presently it's Crucify, because again, my daughter is just obsessed with that song. So it's just on repeat all the time. But like I was saying earlier, I've really been enjoying listening Ocean to Ocean. And for some reason, I just feel we are very, very connected to that album. So it's, yeah, I don't know. I think it's just such a, because I've always dreamt of bumping into Tori Amos on the beach, like living so close. And I actually live very close to her from what I know where she lives. It's like literally maybe 20-minute drive. So it is very, very local. So
okay, you're going to disclose your address to all of us when we get there. What's your favorite song on Ocean Ocean?
I think Speaking with Trees.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
Yeah. It's just, again, I'm very drawn towards that fairy like nature of Tori. I find that very attractive in a way that, again, it's that sort of paradox of a grown-up woman being so, safe in her sexuality, and at the same time being so childlike almost. So I think I really enjoy discovering like what kind of sensation that brings in my body, that sort of paradox, and yeah, so it's definitely Ocean to Ocean, and Crucify, like I said, because of my daughter.
Can I tell you my running into Tori Amos story? So I was in East Village, New York. I used to live there, and I was on East 9th Street. I used to like live outside of this coffee shop. I just spent all my time there. And I remember I was sitting outside, and this woman walks by, and I'm like, I know that voice, I know that face, but she has a black bob, and it's before like it's before she did Pip, as in the Dolls, the Dolls tour. And my one friend at the time was like obsessed with, he followed her around the country every show. He was friends with all her bodyguards. Like he knew everything about her. He would hung out with her backstage. He was like part of the in crowd. And I said to him, I'm like, this woman just walked by me on the street with like a black bob, but everything else was Tori Amos. He's like, that's Tori Amos. She's in town right now, and she wears this Pip bob. And then she came out with that, and I was like, oh my God, she walked by me, and I let her walk by me. I didn't know it was her. But it was like, so I got that close to Tori Amos. It was pretty amazing. But you have an even better chance, Malvina. What about you, Melissa? What's currently alive for you?
I'm feeling caught a light sneeze. And again, these videos that I was watching and seeing her harmonizing with herself, and like in that church, I realized that I was in Ireland a few years ago, very close to that church, and I just found this out a few days ago. But that image of her just letting the music flow through her and those harmonies, I think she's saying beauty. That one part of the chorus, just all those parts, I feel like I'm in this place of integrating the fullness of my being and how to like harmonize with myself and these different aspects of myself. So something about that song and seeing her, that feels like where I am right now.
And those harmonies are so delicious on that song. That beauty part is so high, and it's like another creature coming through.
That's where I am, right in that part.
Yeah, oof, that's so beautiful. Anyone want to add anything else before we start closing? I feel so like full and tender. Yeah. Okay. Thank you all so much. This was really, really fun and beautiful, and maybe the beginning of some more things we'll do like this. It might be really, really sweet. I guess what I would like, and we'll put this in the episode details as well, if there's any way you want anyone to reach out to you, if you want to, you don't have to, but if anyone wants to like say out loud something they're doing or something you want people to see, this is a chance to do that if you want to unmute and say that, or you can just email us and we'll put it in the episode details. So I'll pause for a minute if anyone wants to say anything. I was say, Miss, come on, girl. I saw you in the airport.
I was going to say, I'm always, you can find me @Amiss_Tori on pretty much every social media. And it's just me, again, paying tribute to the doll, to the original doll, to Tori, doing my best imitations. And just when you played that clip earlier, I was like, oh, I'll never play like that. But, if you want to see like a close second, well, a close third, you can always check me out. And I'm slowly working my way through her entire catalog. She's got a lot of songs and a lot of albums, so it's going to take me a minute. But I haven't taken on. Here's the thing: I haven't taken on a single song from Boys for Pele yet because it's too intimidating for me to cover. For that, I'm working my way up to it, so you'll see that at some point.
Oh, I can't wait to hear that. It sounds awesome. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you all so much for being with me. It was really, really beautiful. And we'll see you soon. That's the end of today's episode. Now let's take a moment to notice where we feel the episode in our bodies. Close your eyes. Take a breath. And let whatever wants to come up, come up. And remember, those sensations hold the wisdom that we're looking for. If you want to go deeper, visit holisticlifenavigation.com.